I turned on my cell phone, and I don't remember if I called Gidon or he called me, but I was all excited and bubbly and hey, and I'm home and da-da-da, and whatever. And I said, okay, so I'll see you soon. And he said, no, wait, I have to tell you something. So I'm like, okay, what? He says, Chaim Tzvi got hit by a car. So I have to say that I was not surprised because, you know, little boys, yeah. But I said, all right, I had just finished studying a book called In the Garden of Faith, the Garden of Emunah. I'd been studying that book the whole trip. And I said, okay, God does everything in the world. Everything God does has a purpose, and everything God does is good. So this must be good. And then, you know, he assured me that, you know, he told me what his injuries were. We didn't know about the brain tumor yet.
Yes, yeah.
But I was able to say, this must be good. Which is amazing that I could say that.
Wow.
But in retrospect, thinking about what that kibbutznik said, right? There is a power that runs this world. That was a personal message.
A personal message from God to you.
Right.
Isn't that
amazing?
Fantastic.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, and the source, you know, the unexpected source. Exactly. So it made that even much more powerful.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Amazing. So, yeah. So you asked when I found out. So I found out after I landed in Israel, but I had this layover in Paris, and one of my neighbors phoned me. Now, at the time, this was before many people had smartphones, whatever, and the fees, the cost of using the phone internationally were prohibitive, not just to the person receiving the call, but the person making the call.
Yeah.
And my
and
neighbor
they don't
called
necessarily
me.
know.
Right. And she just dialed my regular Israeli number. So I said, you know, I'm in Paris. I don't know if you want to talk to me. She said, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. She didn't give a hint why she called me, and it was not somebody who normally calls me. So it was a little weird, but okay. Then I get a message that another friend of ours is going to pick me up at the airport. And I said, wow. No, before that, I get a message from Gidon. He says, call me as soon as you land. And I thought, oh, isn't that nice? He misses me. How wonderful. And then he sends another message. Our friend is going to pick you up. And I said, wow, what a great friend. How wonderful is that? That's so nice. You know, little did I know. Right?
So isn't that a nice thing? He was trying to get you home before.
Right.
Because what would it have been like being on that flight and you had. Okay.
Right. Okay. Wonderful. So that brings to another dimension of the story. The story is like an onion. Okay, there's so many layers to God's involvement in this story. So another layer to this story is a week or two before I flew, we had a massive recital of Psalms in our community for a little boy who was about to undergo brain surgery.
What does that mean, a massive recital? Like how many Psalms?
Finishing the entire book of Psalms multiple times.
Whoa.
The way that's often done is you can buy sets of the Book of Psalms with every psalm in a separate booklet. You get together a bunch of people, you hand out the booklets.
Okay.
So that together the group recites, each person is reciting a number of psalms. Together the group as a whole has recited the entire Book of Psalms. And sometimes if you have a lot of people, you can do multiple readings of the entire Book of Psalms over an hour. Depending on how many people are involved, whatever. So this young boy in our neighborhood had a very terrible form of epilepsy, and he was about to undergo brain surgery, which hopefully was going to help. So I participated in that, and he was actually having his surgery the day that I flew. So because I was in the year of mourning for my mother, there are a lot of different traditions about mourning practices. They're not necessarily law, but different things that people do. I was not watching any movies the year that I was in mourning. So what are you going to do on the plane, right? Not going to watch movies. Yeah. So I said, I will recite by myself the entire Book of Psalms.
That just came to you.
For the health of this little boy, because I'm going to be flying. I'm not going to have anything else to do anyway. I may as well use my time wisely. So there's no question in my mind, because we also have a tradition that someone who prays heartfelt for someone else, that their own prayers are answered. So there's no question in my mind that recital of Psalms on my way to America impacted my son while I was away. And it, as I said, no internal injuries, whatever. So that was another piece,
It's
another
beautiful.
piece of the puzzle or the symphony, or however you want to describe it. So that was how I found out.
Yes.
Another thing that happened well in advance was, as I said, it was right before the Passover holiday, and people who know a little bit about Passover know that in an Orthodox household, it's a lot of work because you remove all the leavened goods from the house. You clean the house, particularly the kitchen, quite thoroughly, and you have to make certain areas kosher, and you cover things up, and you lock things away, and you throw things out, and it's a lot of work to prepare the house.
Is that like the week of the year that is like more than any other week? I mean, that preparation is just
there are people who clean the house from top to bottom. They do their spring cleaning. They clean everything because they want the house to be fit for royalty. Not just to get it kosher for Passover, but also fit for royalty. There are other people who say, okay, that's more than I can handle. I'll do my spring cleaning in the summer. But the kitchen has to be kosher. You can't have even a crumb of leavened anything in the kitchen. It's a process.
So for a woman in her household, that week is a week that stands out above all other weeks in the year.
Right.
Okay.
Men too. Men are part
of course.
I mentioned Passover in a car today, and my neighbor said to me, "You didn't just say that word, did you?" And we're several months away.
Okay.
But and in addition to that, look, as we're recording this, the American Thanksgiving is just passed.
Yes.
And Americans who celebrate Thanksgiving know how much effort goes into preparing that Thanksgiving meal. So the Seder meal is supposed to be a meal for royalty. It's easily as complex as a Thanksgiving meal. Plus, there are a lot of ceremonial foods that have to be prepared, and the table has to be set, and everything that goes on. So it's really a tremendous undertaking. And generally, we are the hosts for the Seder, and I have
the Ariels,
and we have cousins who live in Israel who traditionally come to us. Almost every year they come to us, they and their children. So the year of the car accident, these cousins of ours had just moved to a new community, and a few months before Passover, they came to us and they said, listen, we just moved to this new community and we would like to spend all the feasts in our new home instead of traveling. So we know that it's not so simple for you guys because you have 5 children and no car, and we have 2 children and we have a car, but we would like it if you would come to us instead of us coming to you. So we said, okay, fine, no problem. We're happy to do that for y'all, no problem.
That'd be different.
Yeah. You can run it the way you want, but we'll do it in my house. So we said, okay, fine, that'll be fun.
Okay.
Which meant that when I landed in Israel 2 weeks before Passover, and then I spent almost a week in the hospital with my son, I didn't have to worry about finishing cleaning and starting to cook.
Yes.
The house got cleaned. There were people who helped get the house clean, but they could keep cleaning almost right up till the last minute because we weren't making Seder in our house. So God said, okay, I know you're going to have this challenge, so I'm going to take that challenge off of you. That's not going to be there.
Which means that God started way back.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
Well,
wow.
I mean,
they even had to move to a new community.
Right.
Hey guys, maybe now it's time to move. Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And just, as an interesting addition to that, the community that they moved to is the community where we live now.
Which is Panay Hever.
Right. And because we moved there, among other things, that's where our middle daughter met her husband. So, when you talk about God weaving...
So their move precipitated your move
and
precipitated the meeting of it.
Right. So you talk about God weaving. Because God is big. God is bigger than we could possibly imagine.
How do you mean the word big?
Okay, so big, it might seem to be limiting to call God big because God is not measurable, right? But we're humans. We can't. How do we grasp something that's not measurable? We like things to be in neat little boxes.
Right.
So, but if we can understand that God is so big, that what immeasurable means so big that everything is there. Everything in time, everything in space. It's all that God has all of that. And so the idea that God would say, okay, this family is going to move here, and then they're going to have this idea, and then many years later that family is going to follow that, and it's all it's all interwoven. It's all there. There are no coincidences.
That's beautiful.
So, yeah. When Chaim Tzvi was in, okay, so you're asking when did we find out about the brain tumor? Because we said we didn't.
Oh, right.
know. Right. So it happens that actually the doctor had told Gidon about the brain tumor.
Even before you arrived in
but,
Israel.
It's a good thing. I found out later, I was told later, that if God forbid you're ever involved in some kind of health issue,
yes,
it's important to bring somebody with you to the doctors who is unemotionally involved, somebody who can be an objective observer, because you will miss information.
Oh,
At the least, you should go with a tape recorder, dating myself, but you should record something, because you will miss information. And this is what happened. Gidon was there. Chaim Tzvi's teacher was there. The doctor came and started listing for Gidon all of the different findings.
Yes.
And he mentioned at the end that Chaim Tzvi had a brain tumor. And Gidon didn't hear it. He didn't hear it. And he told me when I got to the hospital, they found an anomaly on the CAT scan, so they're trying to decide what they're going to do with his leg. Are they going to set it? Or are they going to put a pin in? Or are they going to put it in a cast? But until they talk with the neurologist, because of this anomaly, they're not doing anything for him. So I understood that to mean that it was nothing. They saw something, but when the neurologist would say that it was okay, and then they'd set the leg or they'd put pins in or whatever, and that meant that it was nothing. They went back 2 weeks later, because in the release letter it said they needed to follow up with the neurosurgeon. Okay. They went back to see the neurosurgeon. They went to get the CD from the MRI room, and it was broken.
Wait, so they did surgery on... no, it's just setting the leg.
No, but they anesthetized him. They set his leg, and they set his nose, and... no, they didn't set his nose. They set his jaw. They wired his jaw shut, because his jaw was broken in 2 places. So then they couldn't touch his nose because they had to keep one airway open during surgery.
Oh, okay, makes sense.
So they went back to see the neurosurgeon, but the disc was broken, so they had to reschedule. They rescheduled it for the following week. He goes back, and lo and behold, it was Israel Memorial Day. Nobody should have scheduled an appointment for Israel Memorial Day. No doctors were there. So they went back the following week. So now it's a month after the car accident. They go in to see the neurosurgeon, and the neurosurgeon says, "What took you so long to get here? This child has a brain tumor." And so here's this little 8-year-old boy and Gidon. So they come to me at work and they tell me, so we don't know, okay, what does that mean? That's pretty scary. So we go to our family doctor, and he says, "You must get a second opinion." So we went, and we found out, we got recommendations who to see, and we were told to go and see a certain Dr. Shlomi Constantini in the Dana Children's Hospital in Tel Aviv. And we took with us our good neighbor. We had neighbors who only lived next door to us for a year, wonderful people, and the husband is a physician. He's a family care physician, Johns Hopkins trained, and in fact was also taught at Hopkins when he lived in the States. And he drove us to Tel Aviv on a Saturday night to meet with this Dr. Constantini at 11 o'clock at night to get a second opinion. So, we were really surrounded by wonderful people. And we saw Dr. Constantini, and he looked at it. The neurosurgeon in Hadassah felt that it was a cancerous growth. The Dr. Constantini said, "I think it's benign, but we'll only know when we do the biopsy. We'll only know after we take it out. It'll take a while." But once this doctor spoke, he was so confident. He was so calm. I felt relieved. I felt that everything was going to be okay. But before we walked out of his office, so we asked him, "Okay, so we'll just do this in Hadassah, right? Because we live by Jerusalem." He said, "Of course you're going to do it here, in my hospital." So we said, okay. It turned out that at the time in Hadassah Hospital, they weren't doing 100 brain surgeries a year. In Dana, they were doing over 100 pediatric brain surgeries in a year.
Whoa.
This was the place.
Wow.
But before we left Dr. Constantini's office, and he's a secular guy, I said to him, "Listen, we're believing people, and I'm sure that you're very skilled and you're very experienced and very intelligent, but we believe that your success or failure comes from God." And he said in Hebrew, "I like the label messenger." shaliach,
Huh.
which was amazing.
Huh.
And to me, that was wow, because if there is a doctor in this world who has the right to be arrogant, it's a pediatric brain surgeon. And here's this man saying, no, I like being called an agent of God,
Whoa.
a messenger. So that was pretty impressive.
Wow.
So not long,
And what a thing to hear at the point of something so important
Right.
for your family's future,
Right.
and then to have someone say that.
Right. Right.
That's
amazing.
great.
Amazing. And he has been an amazing doctor all along. He's an amazing guy, and people come from all over the world to study with him.
Uh-huh.
So a few weeks later, I mean, he said, okay, listen, we need to do this, but don't be too stressed out. It'll be okay, whatever. We'll schedule it for, and we scheduled it. And when Chaim Tzvi was recovering, and we were in Tel Aviv, at some point, you know about, in Israel, it's very common for religious girls to, instead of going to the army, they can get out of going in the army entirely, but then what national religious girls often do is they volunteer for a year or two in national service. It's very common to see national service girls in all kinds of contexts. Mm-hmm. So there were, of course, girls doing their national service in the hospital. They were actually on the oncology ward. But somehow I got to talking to these two girls, even though we were not on the oncology ward, and I told them this story with all its details. And one of them said to me, you know, here I am on this ward, the oncology ward. And that's a hard ward to be on, you can imagine.
You bet.
Pediatric oncology. That is a rough place to be. And here's these 18-year-old girls, and they're there, and what tools do they have? And parents look at them and they say, you're religious, how could a God do this? Right? And this girl looks at me, she says, I have an answer now. I have an answer now. God knows what he's doing. There's somebody who runs this world. And that, to me, is why Chaim Tzvi had to have a brain tumor. Because we had to be there for those girls. We had to have that story. We had to be able to talk to them.
That's beautiful.
Because, wow. So, I'm sure I've left out all kinds of things.
What was his recovery like?
It was a rough recovery. The brain tumor was in the part of I don't remember how you say it in English, but the part of the brain that controls balance. So
was it benign?
It was benign. In the beginning, he went for MRIs every 6 months. Now he goes every 2 years. He has a nice big scar on the back of his head. He's fine. He's fine. He didn't get a combat profile for the army, but I don't think it's because of the brain surgery. I think it's actually because he still has a pin in his leg.
When you told me this story before, you added one aspect to it that I wonder if you could comment on.
Okay.
You talked about the window.
Right. I knew I was leaving something important out. Thank you.
In fact, hold that thought, because we're going to come back and finish this story in our final segment.
Okay.
Until then, this is Bob Odell with Root Source saying Shalom.
Shalom.